Good morning. How are you guys? I hope you guys are good. I am brilliant. Another wonderful morning. This is literally, I think, the second last Monday of November. So next week, Monday will be the 31st. So you can imagine how fast time goes. Very soon we'll have to be discussing, your New Year resolutions and what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. And that's one of the reasons I'm running this Quantum Realm of the Impossible series, or the Quantum series as we call it. Why? Because I realize that for many of us, we really need a quantum leap. And before I jump into that, which is a very, very engaging subject, let me start off by first and foremost acknowledging that we come through every working day, Monday to Friday. Mondays is yours truly. Tuesday, we have Dr. Sunshine with her program on mindset change. Wednesdays, we have the mompreneur. Thursdays, we have Dr. Nelly with her program on prosperity for the soul. And then on Friday, we have New Image and the health tips. In fact, Friday is taking on a whole new twist to it. And so it'll be quite exciting for you guys to be a part of that. Now, straight away, let me jump into my topic. I have been talking about the quantum realm of the impossible. And this is such an exciting topic for me because I believe with all my heart and soul that there is something inherently powerful about every one of us as human beings that is locked in us from the day we are created and born. And the only issue that's there really is to know how to harness that, to know how to pull all that out. And then the other most exciting bit is that we were not put here by accident. Everybody that's right now alive has been put here by intent. You did not choose who you are. You didn't choose your name. You didn't choose your skin. You didn't choose your looks. You didn't choose your locality. You didn't even choose your family. You didn't choose your tribe. You didn't choose your country. You just found yourself born. And the fact that you found yourself born means there was intent. The Creator intended for you to be where you are. Every object has function. I always like using this little bottle. This was not created and then the owner say, what do we use it for? I think we're putting things inside. No. There was an issue and then they created that bottle to solve that issue. And every object carries with it the desire. You can determine what it is. The purpose is locked in its design. So if you look at this cup, for example, the way it's designed is for a purpose. So its very purpose is displayed in the design. So everything you see, the purpose for what it does is displayed in its design. And so this in itself should tell you that you too have a purpose. Whatever gifts, talents, abilities you have, these are locked by design. So the big question everybody asks themselves is, then how do I know how to unlock that? That's why we have Unleashing Your Destiny, one of my classes, which is available. We should be launching in December. I'm still working on when exactly to launch it, but we will launch it. And then you will be able to be part of that. But today I am focusing on this series, which is so exciting, which builds us into, it's the whole quantum realm of the impossible series, which includes aspects on how to achieve this thing. And today's topic is very interesting because it's quantum leaps and the nth factor, igniting critical mass in business, which is part of the quantum realm series. So this is part 3 in these quantum realm series. I didn't put part 3 there. I was supposed to put part 3. Anyway, so what exactly is a quantum leap? Okay, so I've said it many times. In peak performance, a quantum leap depicts a sudden and great leap or surge forward with exponential results in a given endeavor or sector. For the untrained, these may look like blind luck. Yet studies have showed that it is anything but luck. What causes these quantum leaps is in fact a strategy of execution. So a lot of people really feel so much has to do with luck. And there's a big belief in luck. In fact, I believe that's the reason why so many people want to go see fortune tellers, want to go see prophets, so that the prophet can prophesy in their life. And what is so interesting about prophecy is that what you don't realize is that the prophet or the medium or whoever it is actually tapping into what you already have. They will never, unless they're fake, they will never tap into knowing your future unless it's already vibrating. There's already a vibration about your life that they can connect to. So it means that purpose determines even what people see about you. And that's why every one of us, all we need to do is tap into that. And I love this particular thing when it says strategy of execution. So meaning you and I, every one of us carries massive potential. The Bible says that we must have dominion. That's the fifth of the mandates, dominion. So dominion means that you and I thrive in our domain. So the question you got to ask yourself is, which one is your domain? So that's the part where a lot of people get confused, because they kind of get sucked into detours and go off tangent and go and do things which are not really lined up to who they were called to be. And so that's why they struggle. They struggle because that's not where they should be. Let me tell you, when you begin to operate using your gifts, talents, and abilities, you will thrive. Why? Because these come to you naturally. And then the ability to achieve this nth factor I'm talking about will become possible. Why? Because you're operating through what you were called to be. And when you're operating in your place of dominion, it shows. Because everything you do first comes naturally and easily. Secondly, is driven by a deep inherent desire to see that thing happen. Thirdly, when you do it, you gain great satisfaction in return from it. And fourthly, you are bothered when it is not done. So this thing of being bothered when it's not done is also part of this thing we're talking about, this thing that makes you unique and different. And that's why the greatest tragedy in my books is the tragedy of misplacement. Just take note of that word again, misplacement. So placement, it is in the word place where you have location. So lake. So placement. So when you are misplaced, you can never operate at full potential. Why? Because you are operating outside your gifts and abilities and talents. You are literally forcing yourself to do what you're not born to do, and that's why people struggle. But when you discover what you were born to do, and it is a discovery, by the way. So when you discover what you were born to do, then it is very possible for you to operate at a high level. So let's talk about this thing about success and blind luck, because there is no blind luck. In fact, I always tell people that luck does not exist for the rich. The rich create their own luck. The poor are the ones who look for luck. They look for fortune, and they think fortune is tied in some object or some talisman or some kind of thing. That's why a lot of them will even go, will be deceived by these prophets who tell them, no, come and I'll give you this oil, and you pour it, and you take this salt and throw it, and take, if it's witchcraft, to do more or whatever. They always believe it's some object that brings luck. I'm here to tell you that you are the luck. I'm not kidding. I am dead serious. You are the luck. And the thing that unlocks your luck is this: your mind. How you perceive and go into anything determines what you get. We have, there's a law among the hermetic laws, or what we call the natural laws. It's also a spiritual law. States, and I quote, as above, so below. As inside, so outside. As intended, so it becomes. So in other words, it's called the law of correspondence. Whatever you see on the outside matches with what's on the inside. So there is nothing outside your 8 arenas, what Dr. Sunshine calls the 6, areas of the wheel of life. So I call them the 8 arenas. Same thing. Whatever you see in each arena is a picture of what's going on inside of you. I gotta say that again. So whatever you see in every arena in your life is a picture. It's a reflection. It's a manifestation of what's going on inside of you. And I need to hasten and say, because a lot of people get confused on the financial side. Let me tell you something about finances. Finances are a result of the dispensation of value. So when it comes to finances, it has a lot to do with the dispensation of value. And then now, if you have a lot of finances and the whole space in your financial life is chaotic, then definitely that's a sign of what's on. But I can tell you, based on experience, based on understanding, that for most people, the big problem isn't anything but the inability to display value and to trade value in the marketplace for compensation, for pay. So that's what really is going on. But let's talk about this quantum leap. Let's listen to some examples of powerful quantum leaps that achieve what we call the nth factor. To demonstrate what I speak of, think about the following facts I'm going to now mention to you. Today's top smartphone has the same computing power as the entire world's computing capabilities in the year 1970. One smartphone has more computing capabilities than all the world's computing capability back in 1970. Can you believe that? Today's the service phone has more computing power than the computer that was on board the Apollo 11, the same space vessel that landed man on the moon. Can you believe that? Your average service phone has more computing power than that. Newer companies are taking shorter to breach the 1 billion turnover threshold. In other words, new companies are doing it in 6 years. In fact, now the latest record has got to be some of the new companies like OpenAI. When OpenAI went public, they hit $1 trillion in days. Can you imagine? In just sheer capital. $1 trillion. So nowadays, companies are now hitting $1 trillion, something unheard of even 10 years ago. So you realize that with this $1 billion turnover threshold, Apple, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and a number of others have been able to achieve this. This is something that before the advent of the internet and platforms, it was taking companies on average 22 years to cross the $1 billion mark. 22 years. So you go from 22 years to 6 years. That means over almost 4 times the speed it takes or it took before. So what is causing that? You see, it's very interesting. And what is even more astounding is that they are using completely unconventional ways and means to make this $1 billion mark happen. So imagine all these new companies are doing it in less than 5 years, in 6 years to be specific. But like I told you, OpenAI is a brilliant example of newer companies and Nvidia who are doing it. They're doing $1 trillion under 10 years. $1 trillion, unheard of. So what does that mean? That means we're seeing a revolution. I think right now Tesla also hit $1 trillion. This is what's his name, Elon Musk's company, in terms of shareholding and value and things of that nature. So you realize that there's such a leap forward in terms of just what's going on in the world and the quantum achievement. The exponential rate at which technology, specifically biotech, robotics, nanotech, and AI is growing. The chart looks like this. Let me start from this side. Yeah. So if we're starting from there, the chart looks like that. Then it's going straight up, almost vertical. So when you get to the end of it, it's almost a vertical rise. The y, this is the x-axis. The x-axis represents time, y-axis represents growth. And in this case, we're seeing that when it comes to growth, there we are. So when it comes to the growth on the y-axis, it's literally almost vertical. Why? So this is not a straight linear line. That's not how things are working anymore. And I'll talk about linear, exponential, and quantum growth in future episodes. But what's just interesting is that things have changed completely. And why have things changed? Because of what I call the power of leverage and quantum leaps. We'll talk about that again with another factor called critical mass, which we'll touch on. So in the last 20 plus years, tech has grown exponentially greater in leaps and bounds than the entire history of mankind since the invention of the steam engine circa 1712, 290 plus years ago. So imagine the rate at which technology is growing isn't a linear line. It isn't like just equal progressive. No, it's like that, like I keep saying. It looks like that. And the longer the time period, the almost vertical its look. So it's only when you stretch, that's when you see it's a slight curve, but it's a J curve. It's actually going like that. So the whole growth that we're seeing now with technology is insane because you're now leveraging platforms, you're now leveraging numbers, you're now leveraging infrastructure. There's so much today that we didn't have before. Even this transmission we're doing today, this is a quantum leap. 15 years ago, this was impossible. I could not reach this number of people. I had to use a broadcaster. So we'd have to probably take this and go do a TV show or a radio show. And then using that terrestrial model, we would then reach people. We then moved to radio and we're doing the same. But today, this platform is getting us to reach far more people with far less effort. You see that? That, my friends, is a quantum leap. Let's continue. So one critical factor, very important, one critical factor to achieving a quantum leap is when all that is necessary for success is in place. Okay, so when this happens, something called critical mass is achieved. So critical mass can be described as a point at which a self-sustaining state, take note of those words, self-sustaining state is reached. A company's critical mass is determined by the size of its staff. So there are a number of things. So the size of its staff, the resources it has available, the revenues it earns, and the market share it holds. So 4 things. So once these 4 things, which are staff, resources, revenue, market share, once these elements reach the size that enables the company to operate efficiently, it is said that a company has reached its critical mass. From this point onward, the company can be scaled and grow without any need of direct input from the founders anymore. It becomes self-sustaining. So like I keep telling you, at that stage, you don't need outside intervention anymore. It is more in terms of financing and things of that nature, because now it has generated enough critical mass. It's generated enough self-propelling energy that can keep it going. Revolutions are the same. Once a revolution reaches this level as well, it takes a life of its own. So even if the leader was killed, it will still run. Okay, so in simple, critical mass is the state needed for an idea, a company, an organization, or a movement to become self-sustaining without the need for external intervention or input. At this point, it is said to have taken a life of its own. So exponential growth is possible at any level, whether corporate or personal, when it comes to a quantum leap. I'll always say this all the time. Dr. Price Pritchard's book, U Squared, which has been life-changing for me, in which he describes the steps for making a quantum leap in life or a company, is one that I heartily recommend reading if you want to explore this idea more. So Pritchard says, we don't have to be content with incremental gradual change through the application of hard work. Rather, we are capable of an explosive jump in performance at an accelerated rate, and it requires far less effort. Can you believe that? How does this take place? So I'm going to be sharing over the next couple of weeks all these 14 different methods in which you can achieve this. In other words, we'll examine each of the summarized lists that give in detail, that I give in detail as espoused by Dr. Price Pritchard. But for now, let me wrap it up by just sharing with you the component and factors behind making this a possibility. And what excites me about all of this, guys, I'll be honest with you, is just the sheer possibility. You know, there's something, and I'll talk about it later. There's one thing that really makes a difference today more than ever before. And it is this one word. Take note of the word, leverage. So just take note of that word, leverage. See, leverage is the concept by which, if you have the whole thing right, because remember in physics we used to be taught that there's load, and then on this hand you have pivot, and then on the other hand you have the fulcrum. So the fulcrum is the very thing that holds this whole thing together. The pivot is the one that you use to swing, and the load is what you're trying to lift. And I think it was Pythagoras, or one of these great philosophers for back in the day, who said, as long as you can give me leverage, I can move even the moon. With little effort, just I can use myself and I can move the whole entire moon and its mass. And that was a very interesting concept at the time, but it made a lot of sense because it dealt with the whole idea of leverage. As long as you're levered correctly, if your lever is sitting in the right place, your pivot is sitting in the right place, you can use very little effort to lift massive weights. That's the idea behind pulleys and cranes. You see, cranes can lift very, very heavy weights because they use the concept of leverage. So you and I as business people, you and I as individuals need to understand that brute effort, great as it may be, is actually the most inefficient way to work. So what you want to do is operate using leverage. There's a saying that's one of my favorites. It says, small hinges swing huge doors. Small hinges swing huge doors. The secret is in the leverage. So let's start to look at a number of these. So we're going to be looking at this, but I'm going to be giving you what I call summaries of the different things we'll be learning, but we're going to go far into more detail over time. But I'll just start off with all the summaries from now up to maybe the end of next week. And then from there, we go deep into each one. We're going to do deep dives into each one of these 14 items I'm mentioning. So the first one is quit trying harder, try harder, trying harder. So this is now Dr. Price Preacher's 14 keys that you can use to achieve a quantum leap. So number one, he says, quit trying harder. Trying harder only produces incremental gains. A quantum shift is an elegant solution requiring less effort. So in short, he's saying that leverage is key. So let's look at this concept of leverage that he speaks of. And then let's understand where he's coming from. So he says, so this is now the practical application of this. Learn newer skills. Now remember, I told you that you and I are all born with what? Gifts, talents, and abilities. But do you know what makes these amplify skills? So your skill comes to amplify your gift, your talent, or your ability. These are the three things that you are born with inherently. So when you learn a skill, it amplifies or it harnesses or sharpens the effectiveness of your gifts, talents, and abilities. Okay? So another thing again you can do if you're in my space is to automate processes. So automate processes. What does that mean? That means if you can do something automatic, do it. So for example, I've already scheduled almost all my posts for the day. I do that in advance. So like now already a post dropped. And what was the post? It's a post for a topic that's very contentious at the moment. And so these are the things that I would schedule. I usually do these early in the morning. That's why I'm an early bird. I have to wake up early in the morning and then I schedule these things. Why do I spend so much time scheduling and posting on the socials? Because these are our new doors and interfaces to the world. You see, unlike before, we used to have to physically go and be at a location. Today, we can be online. We can leverage this platform called social media and we can place ourselves there. Now, in order to get people to take interest in you and what you do is you begin to share and showcase what you know. And when you share and showcase what you know, then those of the like mind who are interested in what you're sharing will want to communicate and participate in what you share. And that in turn creates a buzz. It creates a interaction. It creates engagement. And many times that engagement will lead to business for some of us. So we're very strategic in the things we post about. They are related to what I do in one way or another. So I'm a thought leader. That's what I call myself, a thought transformation leader. So thought transformation leader means you challenge conventional thinking. And so when you challenge conventional thinking, you get people to react. So coming back to my point. So we automate processes. So I've got a lot of automation I run all over the place. My forms, my booking forms, there's so many things. I can tell you about 60 to 70% of my work is automated. And then also there's another component, outsourcing what you can. So is there a component of your work you can outsource? Oh yes, hell yeah. I do a lot of that. I outsource everything I can outsource so that I can focus on what I need to focus on, which is got a direct impact on my income. So if something, we call it in our circles, in our circles with Dr. Sunshine and Dr. Nelly, we call this high payoff activity. So I focus on activities that have a direct impact on my income. And I outsource and delegate anything that is of low pay value. So for example, unless your cleaning or your gardening or your landscaping is therapeutic for you, because that's a very important point to take note of. If you do gardening because it has a therapeutic effect on you, you use it as a form of exercising, then well and good. But if that's not the case, outsource that, because what's the cost per hour for gardening work? Very, 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 very low. What's the cost per hour for admin work? Fairly low. So if you can hire somebody to do your admin work because you need to do and focus on higher payoff activities, well and good. So like my good elder sister here, Dr. Sunshine, she has Sandra as her personal PA, so that some of the work that she would normally have to be boggled down doing, she gets her to do that. So that's called what? That's called outsourcing. She also has a gentleman called Martin who does the IT work at her place. She, instead of her doing all that IT, she outsources. She gets somebody who does that for her. That's being efficient, so that she focuses on what really brings the dough, which is her mindset change program, streamlining, marketing, bringing new clients, whatever. In fact, many times when we build to a certain level, we can bring a marketer, but my experience has been quite lousy in that space, because you bring in marketers and instead of them actually making the sales, they make it worse. I did that. I'm speaking from personal experience that these sellers are so bad that they just literally kill. I mean, I mean, I know what kind of leads I can generate. I know how many, sales I can close. And then you bring in a so-called marketer and they do like half your numbers. You're like, wow, what's going on here? So many times we've been forced to do the marketing ourselves. But ideally, that's supposed to be somebody else, so that you focus on the core product. But hey, at the end of the day, if it's going to make you more money, if it's going to bring you more dough, why not? So that's the other aspect we do. We leverage, we outsource. Let me finish with the last one. Ignore conventional approaches. So a quantum leap requires an abrupt change in behavior. It requires finesse over effort, simplicity over complexity, a new paradigm, and a fresh perspective. In fact, I think I'll do this next week because it's quite detailed and there's quite a bit to say there. And I wouldn't want to rush this. So let me close by just re-emphasizing that first point we shared, which is quit trying harder, leverage instead. So just remember that word because I sang about it. Leverage. What does that mean? That means using less effort to achieve more. In fact, the term that I've come to love is efficiency and effectiveness. So let me close with those two. Being effective is doing the right thing. So in other words, you bring the result needed. So when you're effective, you produce the result needed. So when you go out to do something, there is an end game, an end result, you bring that into play. That's being effective. Being efficient is using the least amount of effort to produce the result. So meaning when it comes to resources, you use less resources, but you achieve the same monumental results. So you can imagine if you're efficient and effective, then you really are flying. In other words, your level of efficiency is super high and you're able to gain more back in terms of profit. So it's about efficiency. It's about streamlining your processes of producing your service or product in order to maximize on returns for the clients. And in this day and age, that's going to become more and more of a reality, especially with AI. So AI is making that a reality, whether people like it or not, whether people are happy about it or not. AI is changing the landscape. So this really brings the bigger question to you and me. And the question is, when AI comes into your space, what will keep you relevant? That's the big question, my friends. And whether we like it or not, AI is here. Somebody said, and I agree with them totally, AI is a freight train. It's like a freight train, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's coming. So the only issue is, how can you make sure that even when it finally arrives and disrupts, because it will, it's already disrupting in ways people can't even begin to imagine. One of the areas where there will be remaining virtually no one working will be the banking sector. I guarantee you that sector is going to disappear. The only people that will be working are the core services. And so if the core services are going to be the only thing remaining working, and you are right down on the lower end, because the ones who first be gotten rid of are all the blue collar people, those definitely will be going. And then you got your white collar. So like unionized people will get fewer and fewer in these corporates, especially banks. Why? Because AI is disrupting. AI can do what humans can do without asking for Mother's Day off, without asking for, leave, without asking for pay rises. It can do the job. And so where processes can be automated, it's already doing that. ATMs already got rid of a lot of people. And when the company now realizes that there's mobile money, what have they done? They are building less ATMs and they are pushing more and more money away into mobile money. See? So mobile money has disrupted immensely the whole process of ATMs. People have to service those things, the purchase of those things, and the maintenance of them. That's a job. Okay, maintenance will remain because they still have to be working. but that means tellers on the tills are reducing. And so if you are not waking up to this, what I'm telling you now, you will learn the hard way. So there's something very profound going on this outsourcing space, but I'm very excited because we're not affected. If anything, we are leveraging AI. I use about 5 or 6 AI tools right now, actively in my business, and they do wonders for me. So they make my ability to be efficient far more proficient. I'm far more proficient and I'm far more able to reach more people with less effort. That's how profoundly powerful this whole process is. I'm loving it myself. So the key is just how do we make it happen? So in our next thing, we're going to be looking at this very interesting concept: ignore conventional approaches, and then we'll be looking at others. Think beyond what common sense would allow. So these are some of the issues to really start to rack our brains. These are part of the 14, keys that Dr. Price Pritchett shares in order to provoke us into thinking deeper. So having said that, guys, we'll build on this. We'll really work on this quantum realm series. Maybe we should have about maybe 20 or 25 episodes of this. So on that note, I want to thank you guys for being part of this call this morning. Tomorrow you have Dr. Sunshine coming through with Mindset Change Program. And I remember in December we go on break, so we'll let you know. Probably just before Christmas. That's when we'll go on break and be back, sometime in February. So on this note, guys, it's been an awesome week. We look forward to touching base with you guys next week, and for Dr. Sunshine tomorrow. For myself, adios, muchachos. Have a good day.